Our species evolved to have certain experiential tendencies. The implications of that somewhat obvious fact are profound. They call for a real revision, deepening of much of the secular worldview. Because from that proposition that we evolved to have certain experiential tendencies, the secular world understanding can regain some of the important connections that humankind has generally had with some of the most important sources of guidance that are available to us, having to do with both the moral and the spiritual dimension, which are given somewhat short shrift in much of the secular worldview. And put that secular worldview at a disadvantage to the religious worldviews. They got no problem taking seriously the moral and spiritual dimensions. They have it handed down on the basis of authority, that this is the way it is. And it doesn't have to take into account, well, what is the evidence for this proposition or that proposition? People in my part of the secular world want to take evidence and draw inferences about the nature of reality, so that we can't get to the moral, the reality of the moral dimension and the reality of the spiritual dimension by appealing to authority and revelation. Show me the evidence. Well, the evidence is, with respect to the spiritual dimension, that human beings have evolved to have the capacity for a certain kind of experience. Not easily defined, but it seems as though it's quite widespread. At least I'd say a third of the people in their lives, some evidence suggests, have such experiences. It's got to do with going down to a level that feels especially real, especially important, especially deep. And people often come back from spiritually transformative experiences with committed to certain truths, which sometimes are called spiritual truths or something, which have been incorporated into the person's belief at an especially intense and committed level. And these experiences that people can have of going especially deep to something especially impactful, meaning that a lot of people can point to moments of a special experiential nature, whose impact was that it changed the course of their lives. I've myself had 3 or 4. I think I've had 4 moments. First one in 19. I've had, anyway, going back more than half a century. And my work has always been completely determined by those experiences. I mean, I've utilized the tools of the secular world that I was trained in, and developed, the first of those experiences into that book published by the University of California Press called The Parable of the Tribes, the problem of evil, the problem of power in social evolution. That changed the course of my life, that moment, that idea, seeing that, thinking that idea could have a beneficial impact on our ability to survive as a human civilization. Well, if the people who are religious and are aflame with their moral righteousness and take so seriously their spiritual commitments, but are completely broken, which is what's happened in America over time, And meanwhile, the people in the secular world, which is a big part of the liberal America, um, have given the moral and spiritual dimensions short shrift. Well, that has adverse implications in the struggle. As for the struggle for power between goodness and evil, it reminds me of the famous line from Yeats that I've probably used 20 times in the last 20 years. The good lack all conviction, while the evil are filled with a passionate intensity. So I think it really matters if the people in the secular world can see in ways that are legitimate in the secular world about evidence and logic, that the spiritual dimension is to be connected with and honored and taken seriously as a source of important guidance. I think that might help to transform that Yeatsian problem of the good lacking all intensity, all conviction. I mean, I think of Barack Obama failing to use the powers available to him against the force that wanted to rob him of the powers of the presidency, and succeeded essentially. So I think it's important to see that this capacity is one that we human beings have evolved to have. The fact that it's so widespread that you find the spiritual dimension playing a role in hunting gathering societies in Siberia with their shamans, and little societies in the Amazon with their wizards. People are going to places where they are having special kinds of experience. And they're bringing that back, and that the message that they bring back seems to be to play a constructive role in the survival of those societies, because it wouldn't be there unless those ancestors who had that capacity were outdoing the ancestors who didn't have that capacity in terms of getting their DNA into the future. That's how evolution works. Human societies have also, if you look at the sacred texts of across the world and the myths, and you can see that people have gotten into spaces where they have had glimpses of things that matter and register at a spiritual level. And then these messages come back, and maybe they're changed, and maybe they're even corrupted. But there are sacred texts around the world, and mythologies around the world in which apparently people having experiences of the spiritual dimension has given the society something that it treats as sacred and turns to for guidance. I don't know whether you can say that the evidence of civilized history is enough to show that it is still advantageous, but I suspect that it has. I think most of the things that you find in the sacred texts seem like they would be more likely to make things whole rather than more broken. I mean, a society in which people obey the Ten Commandments is going to be a healthier society than one in which people are robbing and stealing and failing to honor their mother and father, and getting into fights because of adultery. And it is better to run a society by some of those things. I'm not the first three where all has to do with God. But basically, and you look at the message of the New Testament of love thy neighbor as thyself. I mean, that is clearly a message which says, you want a human world that's healthy, that survives and thrives. Well, the more you can operate by that, or at least by do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, the better. The more likely this society is to be good, to thrive, for life to survive, for people to find fulfillment. It feels better. It survives better. Two major definitions of the good, as far as I'm concerned. Well, we as a species evolved to have these things because the evidence suggests, I mean, it seems, can you not infer from the fact that it's there that it helped people to survive, and to infer from that what the impact of it in terms of spiritual truths or changed life course, or ways of understanding or motivational structures or whatever were beneficial in the terms that evolution keeps score, which is getting your DNA into the future. That's not exactly the same as as people feeling fulfilled, but it does correlate. People who have had these experiences and who have lived in accordance with what they were inspired to do by those experiences, I think that they find a kind of fulfillment that is life thriving. I actually think that we're all called in some ways to find that place within ourselves individually, live from it. But most of the time, I think these days, I think in terms of the battle between democracy and fascism, and we've got the conservative America that has gone off the deep end, and are filled with a passionate intensity to destroy everything, you know, from Ukraine to race relations to climate change, just destroy, destroy, destroy. And then we've got the people of the secular world that are aligned with that don't want fascism, want to do something about climate change. Would never think of blocking aid to Ukraine. So anything that fortifies that side is all for the good. If we follow the evidence and the logic of the evolutionary perspective, we can come to an understanding that will bring us closer to that contact with the spiritual level, which is there apparently because it gives us good stuff. We need all the good stuff we can get. Thank you.